Taiwan is looking to beef up its drone fleet, but that means waiting for weapons from the US. A proposal to outsource green energy overseas is facing pushback from lawmakers. Debates continue over how money from a new carbon tax should be spent. Plus,
come with us to a UNESCO World Heritage Site in Malaysia with a special connection to Chinese history.
A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Yin Khvat. Taiwan's government has announced plans to procure over 1,000 attack drones from the US by 2030. Jaime Ocon looks at how this purchase is part of the military's plan to focus on cost-effective weapons that pack a punch.
Taiwan's military is spending big on what it thinks is the future of warfare. Unmanned and portable systems like these suicide drones. Taiwan announced plans to spend more than $160 million on beefing up its drone fleet in June. On Tuesday, its government said that AIT, the US's de facto embassy in Taiwan, had agreed to fulfill an order of over 1,000 drones by 2030. While this weapons deal is not yet facing delays, many analysts in Taiwan say it's a possibility, with the US defense industry facing high demand.
所以现在面对新的需求的时候 ，demand 还有 supply 这不能 meet， 所以就变成 delay 了。好，那在这种情况下，我想台湾也有所准备。第一个，维持自己的所谓的国防自主 ，domestic 跑大巡自己的生产能力非常重要。
This U.S. weapons deal includes two kinds of drones: the LTS-600MV, which is designed to destroy vehicles and scout ahead for enemy troops, and the anti-personnel Switchblade 300, a weapon small enough to fit in a backpack, yet still packs a punch. The U.S. sees these weapons as crucial to Taiwan's defense strategy against China, which threatens Taiwan with invasion to bring it under its control. Taiwan's military thanked the U.S. for agreeing to expedite the sale of these drones.
这一次已经大幅的缩短行政审查的时间。那么，国防部对于美方安和团队为了加速对台军售的各项努力，要特别表达感谢。
But procuring drones from the U.S. is only part of Taiwan's plans for deterrence. It also has accelerated domestic production of its own military drones. It's all part of the country's asymmetric defense strategy, focused on smaller, mobile, and more affordable weapons. Some U.S. military planners have even suggested turning the Taiwan Strait, which separates Taiwan and China, into a, quote, hellscape, deterring China from coming close to the country.
This idea of essentially flooding the Taiwan Straits with all kinds of drones, not just aerial drones, but also uncrewed surface vessels, underwater drones, that having large numbers of those things is a way to really generate mass in a cheap way and create a lot of challenges for China.
Taiwan is already on track to acquire more than 6,000 military drones by the end of 2024. And while it will have to wait until 2030 to bolster its arsenal with models from the U.S., its investment in its domestic capabilities means, if all goes to plan, it will eventually be able to provide entirely for itself. John Su and Jaime Ocon for TaiwanPlus.
News outlet Politica reports that Taiwan's former president, Tsai Ing-wen, plans to visit the US sometime in the coming weeks. The US-based outlet quoted two sources familiar with Tsai's plans. If accurate, the visit could strain relations between China and the US in the run-up to the US election. China claims Taiwan, and Beijing objected to Tsai's pro-Taiwan sovereignty position during her time as president. Tsai transited through the US multiple times as president, the last time in 2023. The Justice Ministry says China employed cognitive warfare against Taiwan during its military drills earlier this week. The ministry said the drills were accompanied by online disinformation campaigns using hacked accounts aimed at weakening people's faith in Taiwan's military. The ministry urged citizens to protect their social media accounts and verify information to avoid falling victim to these tactics. A separate report from National Security Bureau also warned that China is intensifying pressure on Taiwan through cyber warfare, economic leverage, and international diplomacy. The Bureau says China's aim is to undermine Taiwan's global standing and sow internal division. The Defense Ministry is suspending the pension of a retired general for allegedly violating cross-strait laws. The ministry says Zhang Youxia stood for the Chinese national anthem at a pro-unification event in Hong Kong in August. This violated rules barring retired military officials from attending Chinese political events. There's been growing concern about Chinese attempts to recruit retired Taiwan military officers in recent years.
因为无私怀疑他们这些退将之前的那些动作，然后造成民主观感不佳。 所以修改了这些法令。那他个人来讲的话，到这种阶级，应该有这种警觉警惕。那现在还做这种行为来讲的话，确实是他自己要负起很大的责任。
Chang says he did nothing wrong and will appeal the ministry's decision. Japan's Coast Guard says Chinese Coast Guard ships entered Japanese territorial waters on 2 consecutive days. It said 2 Chinese vessels were seen near disputed islands, which Japan administers and calls Senkaku. It says another armed Chinese vessel was also seen in the waters. China claims the islands and calls them Diaoyu. Taiwan also claims the islands and calls them Diaoyu Tai. Japan's Coast Guard says Chinese vessels have entered Japanese waters on 39 days this year. Tokyo also expressed concern about China's military drills around Taiwan on Monday, part of which took place near the Japanese island of Yonaguni. The government is floating plans to build green energy plants overseas to provide the country with more reliable sources of power. But the idea is facing stiff criticism from opponents. Reese Ayres has more on the proposals.
Taiwan could look abroad for potential new sites to build green energy plants. It's a proposal by Economy Minister J.W. Guo that's been met with intense backlash. Guo is proposing that with help from the government and the American Institute of Taiwan, that private contractors could find suitable sites in neighboring countries like Japan and the Philippines to build green energy plants and then transport that energy back to Taiwan, potentially helping Taiwan reach its target of having 30% green energy by 2030 and diversifying its energy portfolio in the face of increasing threats from China. Guo's proposal has faced a lot of criticism for being poorly thought out, as he was berated by several legislators.
看到这个讯息，哇，大家好紧张哦。所以我可能我说话不够精准了哈，这一点我很抱歉。那你讲是没这回事了？不是没有这回事，还是只有天方夜谭？确实，我现在在想这个，然后我们还提出让专家继续来讨论，学者继续来研究，那么做这个可行性分析。
Opponents say that Guo's plan would be too expensive. He's proposing that ships and undersea cables could transport the energy from, for example, Luzon in the Philippines to Taiwan. But using the decade-long project that linked Taiwan and Penghu with undersea cables as a template, the cables to the Philippines alone would cost over $3 billion US. Opponents also suggest the project would take decades to complete, doing nothing to help Taiwan reach its 2030 green energy goals. And they're saying that Taiwan should first consider utilizing its existing nuclear plants before looking abroad. All this leading Guo to actually apologize, admitting it's all a bit out of his jurisdiction, and he's saying that he'll go away for 6 months to do his homework and come back with a more fleshed out proposal. Fu Huahong and Reese Ayres in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
From green power to carbon emissions, the debate about fees set to be placed on emissions is expanding. Already, environmentalists have said the planned rates are far too low. But now there's also a disagreement about how to use the money raised. John Van Trieste reports.
From 2026, carbon emissions will come with a price tag. The Environment Ministry expects the levies to create a fund worth $186 million US. But while there's broad support for the fees in principle, there's little agreement about the details. Environmentalists say the levies aren't nearly high enough, and now politicians and companies are at odds over how the revenue should be spent. Officials in some regions want money that comes from local polluters to stay local.
至少要80%嘛，受到影响、受到牺牲、付出代价的是地方的民众。那所以地方政府应该拿这些来做建设或环保或健康的改善。
地方本身所为这个环境所付出的这个牺牲，能够至少1半以上留在地方，我觉得这是算是比较合理的。
But not all agree, and companies themselves want to make sure local governments use the funds to help cut emissions and don't treat it as free money to spend however they like.
我们在跟企业沟通的时候，他们也跟我们说，这个碳费他们要他们交可以，但是不能随便去盖公园呐，随便做一些很基本上地方建设的事，他们是有一些要求的。
The Climate Change Response Act limits how the money can be used, making sure this won't happen. But other details, like how the revenues should be divided and exactly what the money should go towards, are yet to be settled, meaning debate over the carbon levies will go on. Howard Zhang and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Sun Yat-sen, the founder of modern China, is revered by many on both sides of the Taiwan Strait. He lived in Georgetown, Malaysia, for 4 months, gathering support for his party. Although his stay was short, his presence left a mark on the local Chinese community there. Tiffany Wong reports from Malaysia.
This is Georgetown Penang, a UNESCO World Heritage Site in Malaysia known for its vibrant mix of different cultures. Georgetown was established in 1786 under King George III as a British settlement, and it marked the beginning of the British colonization of Southeast Asia. Now, Malaysia didn't gain independence until 1957, but Georgetown also has a special connection to an important figure in Chinese history and Taiwanese history. That's the revolutionary Sun Yat-sen. Sun used to conduct meetings in this building, now a museum dedicated to his memory. And this is also where he founded the Guangpa Ribao, a newspaper that he used to gather support for his revolutions in China against the Manchu Qing dynasty. Nowadays, Sun is a well-respected figure across most of the Chinese-speaking world, and this museum attracts hundreds of visitors per year from both China and Taiwan. The museum's curator has spent the past 30 years restoring this historic building on Armenian Street.
Dr. Sun Yat-sen was the first global revolutionary and definitely the first global Chinese revolutionary. So he was able to understand ideas about Western politics, and he was able to integrate it and to translate it. And so he was actually at the cusp of sort of modernity, that he could help the Chinese to modernize.
Sun chose the area around Armenian Street for its narrow alleys like these, easy to get lost in and escape should his revolutionary party be sniffed out. But now the museum proudly welcomes visitors in and stands as a reminder of Sun Yat-sen's influence on communities not just here in Penang, but in both China and Taiwan, adding one more layer to the heritage site's hundreds of years of history and migration. Patrick Chen and Tiffany Wong in Georgetown, Malaysia for TaiwanPlus.
And you can catch more of Tiffany's reporting from Malaysia every day this week here on TaiwanPlus. Former Taipei Mayor Ko Wen-je is being questioned by prosecutors again in a corruption investigation. Despite being in custody, Ko had refused questioning earlier this month, which prosecutors respected on health grounds. After 2 weeks, they're grilling him again about a shopping mall development project approved under his tenure. Investigators are asking Ko about the finances and potential favors involved with the deal. Coming up after the break, Taiwan's last movie billboard painter is now making his own original works.
In the face of adversity, the power of truth.
A
roadmap for a just and open world. Charted by the freest country in Asia.
5, 4, 3, 2.
A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Yin Khvat. Taiwanese semiconductor giant TSMC.
Public buses to be electric by 2030. A mission that begins with listening.
And telling the stories of Taiwan.
In Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Drawing insight from original thinkers.
And sharing it with the world. TaiwanPlus News, a voice of freedom in Asia.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. Roads and railways linking North and South Korea have been destroyed in the latest escalation on the Korean peninsula. Harel Hughes reports on what the demolition could mean moving forward.
On the heavily fortified border between North and South Korea, a series of explosions as North Korea detonates the roads and rail lines that link the two countries in a largely symbolic severance. It's a move that has fulfilled North Korea's vow to completely close the border and upset the delicate relationship with its neighbor to the south.
오늘 북한의 경의선 동해선 북측 구간 남북 연결도로 폭파는 남북 합의의 명백한 위반이며 매우 비정상적 조치로서 우리 정부는 이를 강력히 규탄합니다.
The destruction is the latest escalation on the Korean peninsula. Just a day before, Kim Yo-jong, a top North Korean leader and sister of Kim Jong-un, released a statement delivered by state media, accusing South Korea of sending propaganda-filled drones over the capital city.
상대국의 수도에 침범하여 비라를 살포하는 것 자체도 엄중한 정치적 도발, 주권 침해로 간주되겠지만 그것을 실현하는 수단이 다름 아닌 무인기라는 사실이 이번 사건의 엄중성의 기본 핵이다.
North Korea says South Korea regularly violates their airspace, referring to balloons sent by activists full of aid and leaflets criticizing the regime. In retaliation, North Korea has sent their own balloons across the border, full of trash and even human feces. For months, North Korea has been laying mines and building barriers on the border and increased missile and weapons tests. And now, with infrastructure linking the two countries destroyed, North Korean state media reports that this week, over 1 million young people have joined or returned to the military, increasing signs that relations between the two Koreas may only be headed for worse. Isan Pan and Harel Hughes for TaiwanPlus.
Haiti's Prime Minister is stepping up efforts to fight gang violence in the country. Gary Cannell says 600 new Kenyan officers will join the 400 who have been in Haiti since June. They're part of a multinational security mission fighting heavily armed gangs operating across the country. Cannell says a recent trip to the United Arab Emirates and Kenya is helping their response efforts.
Ils ont démontré toute une série d'équipements que ils ont mettre à disposition nous et drones, machines blindées, armes automatiques et tant d'autres choses que ils même fabriqué qui capables à la disposition de la police et l'armée.
A gang attack in early October killed at least 115 people in one of the worst attacks in Haiti's history. Shares of Dutch chip equipment maker ASML plunged in its biggest single-day loss in 25 years. Stock prices fell 16% following a disappointing sales forecast and weaker sales to China. The result pulled other chip stocks lower, including Nvidia and AMD. ASML is a critical supplier in the wider semiconductor industry. It has scaled back its business in China due to US and Dutch export controls. Previously, almost half of the firm's sales came from China. It now expects that to account for just 20% of next year's total revenue. Australia is set to ban social media for young people by the end of this year, with a goal of reducing mental and physical harm. But the bar's effectiveness is being scrutinised before it's begun, with concerns it could cause more damage. Rosie Greninger reports.
Like most Australian teens, 14-year-old Ben Kiko spends a lot of time browsing social media, but he may not be able to access these sites for much longer. The Australian government is planning to introduce a bill that will ban young people from social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram and TikTok by the end of this year. The aim is to limit the risk to young people's mental and physical health. But Kiko says the ban could instead make him feel further isolated.
Being autistic, I have a really hard time connecting with others, and doing that online makes it a lot easier, a lot less stressful for me, and yeah, also connecting with a lot more people.
He is not the only one concerned. The legislation will impose and enforce a minimum age to use social media sites. The details have yet to be revealed, but the government is looking at setting it between 14 and 16 years old. When the scheme was announced last month, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said social media addiction was taking children away from real-life experiences with friends and family.
I want to see kids off their devices and onto the footy fields and the swimming pools and the tennis courts.
There are also major concerns about online bullying.
People feel like they can be more confident on social media because you're behind a screen. But that also means that bullies can be confident. And that's not a good thing. They can just go, hey, you're ugly, and not feel anything because it's a text.
The ban is also in response to predatory grooming and easy access to adult content, including pornography, which some critics say can normalise sexism and sexual violence. But digital culture experts from the University of Sydney believe a complete ban is not the right path to solve these issues, saying it could limit young people's access to critical support and meaningful social connection.
Social media does present challenges and harms that young people experience. However, a ban is not the best way to go. There are a number of different strategies for addressing the kinds of challenges and negative experiences that young people encounter on social media.
For long-term and more positive outcomes, Dr. Humphrey recommends educating young users and parents on the potential risks of social media, more effective parental controls, giving young people more control over their content, stronger regulations on advertising, and greater government pressure on platform providers to respond to requests. Many teens here say they use social media for motivation and fear being left out of the rest of the world should a total ban be put in place.
Well, in my opinion, I think they could ban certain videos that people can watch and say you can't post until you're 16 and over. That's a good one. Commenting should be banned. I don't know.
Despite opposition, the federal government is currently pushing forward with an age verification trial as they move towards a concrete ban. But months before it's set to be enforced, the ban's effectiveness is already being put under the microscope. James Lin and Rosie Greninger for TaiwanPlus.
A man honoured as one of Taiwan's national living treasures has begun a new chapter in his life. Yin Khvat made his name in the dying art of painting movie posters by hand, but now he's turning out his own original works. Sanji Chi has the story.
An iconic scene, hand-painted movie billboards at a cinema in southern Taiwan's Tainan. The artist who painted them, Yin Khvat, was considered the last of his kind, a master of a dying art form. Now he's officially put away his paintbrushes for the Treme Theatre due to disagreements with one of the owners. But for 50 years, Yin painted over 1,000 posters for films screened at the cinema, and for that, he was recognized as a national living treasure. Now he's embarking on a new artistic journey. Instead of bringing cinema posters to life with acrylic paint, Yin is creating more original work of his own. He's now working more with oils, a big departure from the movie posters with which he made his name.
那这样看板就是一个需要解决啊。那它的色彩比较硬，比较干硬。啊，这嘛那个油画就比较软，啊软它就要泡2-3次以上才好看呢。啊画油画是那越多次越好看呢。
While Yan is embarking on a new artistic phase in later life, it's a bittersweet feeling for the locals who watched him paint movie posters down the years.
这个好像有看过这个大稻埕有，哦，这个有啊，这个那个时候好像上映蛮久的，因为也是李安的作品嘛。对啊，其实就是我也是从小就待在这里了嘛，就是没事走来走去都会看到他在这里的话，现在看不到，确实是就是有点不习惯啊，有点遗憾。
In October, 20 of Yan's original oil paintings went on display at a gallery in Tainan, his first solo exhibition since leaving the theatre. Among the works on display, one in particular caught the eye of a fan who was visiting from Taipei.
我喜欢老师的摄画像，因为我觉得就是因为人对自己都有一种就是包装，所以要画出自己，然后又很像的感觉很困难。
全部那个都灌在他那张图里面哦，那50年的差不多全部的都在那张图里面。
Now aged 71, and after decades of work that has taken a toll on his eyes, Yan faces the common ailments of getting older. But that does not stop him from doing what he loves.
做什么事都要坚持啊，一生都要坚持，都要画到眼睛看不见为止啊，眼睛看不见为止啊。
Yin Khvat made his name through the movies. Now his artistic career and his life have entered their third act, time enough for a lost creative outpouring, a Hollywood ending. Klein Wong and Sanny Chi for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching Taiwan Plus News. You can visit the Taiwan Plus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, take a look at a rare comet streaking across the skies of North Macedonia and Russia's Urals. I'm Yin Khvat. Take care. See you next time.